Happy day, YouTube. My name is John, and this is my channel, The Intermancer. At the end of my last episode, I felt a little bit defeated. And to be honest, I've done a little bit of work off camera. Not a lot. Mostly, I just did some Google searching. I tested some things and got stuff to work. It didn't take very much, but I'm going to show you what I did. First off, you saw before on the end of the last episode that when I tried to start up my server, it was failing because this class right here, this method, mapping JSON to HTTP message converter, was saying you can't create a bean with that name because we've already defined one. So there's a default bean in there in the code called mapping JSON to HTTP message converter that Claude was just ignoring or didn't know. And I don't know how I could have talked to Claude appropriately to tell me the right thing, but I don't need this. So one thing to fix was getting rid of this method. Now, Spring configuration is interesting, and one of the things that I keep going on about is that it's important to know your tools. I have done a lot of Spring, and so there are some patterns that you always learn, even as you're always remember, even as you're having to look up things that you may have done time and time again. I know, for example, that I don't need, that the bean annotation here means that it injects an object with this name into my application context. When I deleted that, I forgot to put the in curly brace. Boom. Okay, this is just frustrating me. There. So, didn't need that. Now I've gotten rid of it. But when I was, if you saw before, this code here did not give me the result I wanted. So I resorted to Googling instead of asking the AI what I should do. And I found in the course of my Googling that what I needed to do was bump the version of JSON data bind. It was at 218. So here, this line in my build Gradle file moves it up to 219. That's the kind of thing that you have to know to look for. Maybe this version is going to help. And one of my questions that I was Googling for is, what is the latest version of JSON? And I found out that I was on 218, and 219 had the default behavior that I wanted was expected, which is why some of my queries were so confused, because it kept telling me, use this configuration, it'll give you what you wanted. I was using that configuration, I wasn't getting what I wanted. Well, it turned out that I wasn't using the latest version of JSON. When I did this, and I made this core, this change, now it'll let me build, and it'll let me run. And I also started using Chrome instead of Safari. Ooh, I wonder if that's my problem. I'm going to test that. I'm going to test that live. We're about to have a moment of discovery. But the first thing that everyone should see is that I concede, and it already came back, and you can see that it came back as multi-lines, even though I don't have this pretty print option selected. So let's see if that works over on Safari. Localhost, I don't need the experiment seed. I can just go organism repo. List. Okay, that worked. That was definitely the problem. The version of JSON was the problem. I have tried to take that into account by modifying my tech stack and including the explicit version of Jackson here in my tech stack document. Every time I put a specific version or a specific technology, I feel like I have failed just a little bit. But it's good that I finally got it to look the way I want to. Okay, now we have a little bit more cleanup that we want to do. One of the things that we did before, close all, was following the recommendations of the AI. I had introduced this organism repo organism repository factory that has configuration and a bean, and it returns an in-memory organism repository as an instance of this interface organism repository. And as I was editing my previous videos, I realized that all of this is unnecessary. I can just have this in-memory organism repository, use the component annotation, and get rid of the factory, and that should plug everything together the way I want it to. Again, AI didn't tell me that. That was just me having some familiarity with the frameworks that I'm using, even though I had to get some things from it a few times before it all worked. Also, as I'm making this video right now, I am noticing that my problems tab here says I got 4 problems. So, cannot find, how do we deal with this? How do we fix all these problems? Oh my heavens. This, it's saying I don't need this, so we're just going to clean that up. I'm just cleaning it up. Cleaning that up, cleaning that up, saving that. And I am wanting to, since its build path is incomplete, cannot find the class for, oh my lord, it's back to that, for java.lang.object. Okay, so what we apparently need to do is clear the cache. Can it tell me how to fix this? Where I go in this IDE to just fix these problems? Fix all of the things. Terminal, output, clear. This is why God made Copilot. Let's check with Copilot. Clear that out. How do I clear the Visual Studio project cache? I don't want to do all that. I do not want to do all that. So we are just going to try to restart and see if that makes all the problems go away. Quit. Reload. What the heck? Visual Studio Code. Huh. So a moment ago I tried to start it and the whole thing just crashed immediately, but it's going now. We'll see what happens. Maximize this. Java is activating. Java is doing all of the things. Okay, let's watch this go till the end. Definitely going to need to fast forward through this. Hopefully we'll get, look at that. Publishing diagnostics problems, probably the same problems. Chromosome test. Why does it always start with chromosome test? That's so weird. Fix the build path, then try build again. Cannot find. How did I do that before? let's see. Okay, that's that. This is this. And the build actually works if it just used a normal Gradle build. Boom. Let's confirm. Build successful. Also, if I run the server, that started just fine. If I seed it, that worked. Organism, repo, list. That's looking the way it should. Organism repo. Set endpoint. Funny, I don't know my own endpoint. Organism repository. In memory. The controller. I need the controller. It is repo just ID. Okay. So here I should be able to do this. Organism repo. Boom. Look at that. That's awesome. All of that pretty print stuff. So everything's working, but it's telling me that I've got compile errors and that my path is not correct. So we'll see if I end up keeping this. Where did I see for it to auto fix my problems, fix all the things? Where is my goodie button? Okay, let's ask Claude. How do I refresh the build path in build path for a Java project in Visual Studio Code? Thinking. Clean Java server workspace command. You have several options for, okay, Gradle tasks. Run the refresh task. Ooh, will the refresh task in Gradle do it? That would be my preference. In refresh tasks. Other? Build setup? Application? No. Not there. Init update. Help. No. Test runtime verification. Check test. Clean jar resolve. Okay, that didn't work. Use the Java clean Java language. This is what I did before, I think. Command Shift P. Reload and delete. Let's watch it do what it does. There we go. The Java build, I guess it finally started doing its thing. Then it's cache doing the indexing. Building done. Everything's done. No problems. Okay, and my chromosome test also doesn't have any problems. Right? What's this? Excellent. Excellent. I have gotten through all of those. I've got through the build problem. Claude actually helped me. I hope I remember that later. Everything's looking pretty the way I want. Pretty. Okay. Now that I've cleaned everything up, I'm ready to go on the way I was. I thought maybe I needed to add a clear to my repo. I'm not sure that I need to do that because I don't necessarily know that I need to. So in test, I'm going to add a new file, new folder to resources, or to test, a new resources folder. And we are going to, what I'm going to put in here is a PostMan script so that I can start up my server and use PostMan to make a post request and get an organism into the repo. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to start PostMan. Sure. We're going to quit Safari, create, continue with Google, the Intermancer, allow, okay. Let's go back to experiment. Didn't start my server. Come on. There we go. That's running. Now this should work. Now I can get the description for one of these. Organism repo. Oh no, was it? Let's do simple arithmetic organism. Get that. Okay, this is good. Copy this. Go into Postman. Okay, I've got this description. I'm going to real quick save this off. Resources. New document. Post test scratch. Paste that. Everything looks great. Save it. Actually, we're going to rename it. Just going to rename it to JSON. Save it. Okay. Everything is looking the way I want. I'm going to go ahead and reboot my server, restart my server, so that it's empty, because now I want to use the post endpoint post mapping repo post. All right, all we're going to have to do is call the repo with the post, and we should add this organism. So let's do that. API demos, API testing. Okay. Collections, environments. HTTP. We want to do post to localhost 8080 Gaia F, right? -F. I need to make that consistent at some point. Organism repo. And the body should be raw JSON. Paste this. Send. Bad request. How's that a bad request? What's the error I got? Did I get an error? Message not readable. JSON cannot construct instance of organism. Cannot from no delegate or property-based creator. So let's just take this error here and ask Copilot. I just tried to post an organism and I got this error. The error indicates I think it's going to have a binding problem with the types and the classes. Indicates that Jackson, the JSON library, is unable to deserialize the JSON payload into an instance of the organism class. This typically happens when the organism class does not have a no argument constructor. Okay. The JSON payload does not match the structure of the organism class. Okay. So let's go in order of these problems. It tells me that I have organism. Let's shrink this. Let's stop the server. Let's look at the outline. Organism string ID. Excellent. It does not have that. Does it have a setter for ID? Get ID. Okay. So we definitely need to come in here. Gene interface. Methods, data quantum. Okay. Since I probably want to be able to serialize all of these, I think that I can just make a blanket rule. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say all of the concrete classes will need to be able to use Jackson for serialization and deserialization. As a result, all concrete classes will need a no argument constructor and standard getters and setters for all properties. Okay. Steps to fix. Ensure no argument constructor exists. Good. Verify getter and setter. I know I don't have one for ID, so I'm making that. Check the JSON payload. We'll get to there. Add JSON creator or JSON property annotations if needed. If the organism class uses a constructor with arguments, annotate it with JSON creator and its properties with JSON property. I think I'm going to go with the no argument approach. It will put fewer annotations on my objects and align with the standard Java bean, and I don't really see a big advantage for limiting that and having no arg stuff. So we will see what this does. So we're saving this. We've saved this. I'm going over here. I have updated. What changes made here? We got modified. Open changes. Okay, I took the Jackson out. That's good. That's fine. And I got post test. Okay, we're going to add all this. We are going to push this up to the repo with the message modified the build Gradle to use a specific Jackson version so that the output is formatted the way I want, formatted properly, because the way I want it is proper, and updated the context documents to include Jackson information, Jackson details, to support serialization and deserialization, support serialization and deserialization with Jackson. Good enough. Commit and push. Okay. Now going over to Claude, going over to my projects, using Gaia F, resyncing. Okay. And the context document, just to remind myself, organism domain objects.md, organism domain objects. I need to change that to classes. Organism domain objects. So I've got experimentation, I got basic arithmetic genes, I should have base organic classes, organic domain classes. Yep. I am going to change that, but I'm going to put it on my to-do list because I don't want to do that right now. Okay. So that's there. It's been updated. The reason I did that is because in GitHub, I have my project looking at this branch. So I'm going to get the branch and all of this behavior to where I want it to go, which is in and out. I've already got the out basically looking what I want. Now I'm looking to get the input of organisms looking the way I want, and then I'll merge this JSON in and out branch over to master, and at that point I will move this context document. Organism domain objects MD has been updated. Look at all of the class files and tell me which ones need to be updated. I'm expecting organism, chromosome. I don't know about genes. Gene. Okay, that's interesting. We'll see. Or chromosome. Check the getters and setters for the genes property. This line is exactly what I was looking for. Data quantum. Organism. Yeah, an organism, it didn't tell me that I need a set ID method, which of all the changes, I know I need a set ID method because that's why I had that error. We'll see if it gets there. Is it doing code? It's still thinking. No, it's not thinking. Okay, basically everything. Rewrite organism.java so that it is consistent with why do I always organism domain objects? Organism domain objects MD. I don't want the JSON creator and JSON property. Okay. Okay, it gave me this. Fine, I'll take it. But does it have set ID? Get ID. It doesn't have set ID. I'm going to see if this just works. Copy this. Back over here. I will look at organism. Organism domain objects dot MD states that every concrete class needs getters and setters for every property. There is no setter for ID. All right, so here I'm being a little bit maybe overly prescriptive. I'm telling it a little bit too much about what I want. The way it gave me the class should work because it had those Jackson or those JSON annotations. But I really wanted to have all of that basic behavior. There we go. That's that. Get ID for setting it after construction from final. So, oh, maybe that's why I didn't notice that before it had it as final, which meant that you couldn't change it after you created it, constructed it. It added a setter, made sure the default constructor doesn't set the ID to allow it to be set later. But if it gets one, it takes it. Okay. The default does set chromosomes with the new array list. It also does it here. Do I care about drying that out? It's usually pretty good to call the parent constructors so that if you add behavior at that upper level, it goes down. So we're gonna go ahead and say the organism string ID constructor should call out to the no argument constructor rather than creating a new array list for chromosomes. This, good, good. Set ID, good. Get ID. The ID property is not final. This looks like everything I want. So here, we will just paste that. That should have the JSON creator, add chromosomes, get ID, set ID. Let's make sure that the build works. Okay, this is a good success point. In my next video, I'm going to start with just doing the rest of those changes to the rest of the objects so that everything can be serialized and deserialized, and then we'll see if that postman call works. Thank you for your time.